Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Fiona Maria Williams, and today joining me is David Fishman, host of ACIM Gather. And so, David, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure being here with you. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. So David reached out to me wondering if we could have a conversation about A Course in Miracles. And of course, I jumped right on that opportunity. And so David and I have been planning to speak with you guys about acceptance and trust. And this is a huge topic when you're a course student because you're dissociating from your ego beliefs and you need a bit of help getting the Holy Spirit and trusting in that, and just feeling that confidence to trust in the Holy Spirit and to use the Holy Spirit more often. So David, before we hop right into that awesome topic, could you please give us a bit of background? You've been doing the course for 40 years, and how long you've been teaching it?
Well, basically for 40 years. I found the course in 1977, quite by accident. Everything always happens by accident. Someone had just visited Helen Schuckman, and he gave a workshop for people who wanted to hear about his new program. He was one of the creators, founders of S, which I had done earlier, back in 1975. Nice. And I always say, if it wasn't for S, I could never have done the Course in Miracles. So he had lived right next door to Jerry Jampolsky, and Jerry had gone through loss of his family, loss of his practice, and he got one of those original Xerox copies of A Course in Miracles, and it helped him get back on his feet. And when his friend Stuart, who lived right next door in Tiburon, California, Marin County, was kind of feeling down and depressed because he had a falling out with Werner Erhard, the founder of S. He said, why don't you try this thing called the Course in Miracles? And Stuart did it for about 6 or 8 months. And then he called New York and said, I'd like to meet this woman, Helen Schuckman. And they said, okay, if you fly into New York, we'll give you, some time with her. So he said, after meeting her, he gave this announcement workshop that I was in. And he says, I was with her all day, but I can tell you in the first 20 minutes, I knew that she could never have possibly written this Course in Miracles. Yeah. So I said, well, if she didn't write it, who did? And then someone next to me said, it doesn't matter who wrote it. Just get the books, start with lesson number 1, and go as far as you can. And if they didn't say that, and I opened up the book and I got to the textbook, I probably would never have taken A Course in Miracles. I never would have bought it. I would say, this thing is not for me. Yeah. But because they said, start with lesson 1, I looked at lesson 1, nothing I see here means anything. I said, wow, that's true. I had done enough work on myself at S to realize that the ego makes things up and gives meaning to things. So everything from that point flowed. I did 50 lessons in the first 50 days. Nice. And then a couple of years later, at John Mundy's home on New Year's Eve, somebody said, why don't we start a Course in Miracles group in my home? And David, do you want to lead it? Wow. And the voice in my head said, well, you can't do that. You're only halfway through the lesson book. You've never really opened up the textbook. Yeah. You can't do that. And yet out of my mouth, through my lips came, okay, I'll do it. Even though I heard you can't do it. Yeah. And I think I had done enough work in recognizing how the ego definitely wants to distort and manipulate and have you believe its way of seeing things. Yeah. And I just went the other way. And that's how I got here, really.
Nice, nice. So you had your own encounter with having to develop your trust, obviously in the Holy Spirit, but especially in that opportunity, yes. Like where we're taught, like the Holy Spirit just moves through me, like I'm just a vessel, I'm a communication device. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about opportunity and to see that everything is for you. Everything is for you. That's pretty much what trust is. I just want to mention that I have this card. I have my regular card, but on the back of it, there's a line from the Course in Miracles. It says, trust would settle every problem now. And that comes from chapter 26, section 8, paragraph 2. Yeah. And when it says trust would settle every problem now, the ego says, well, that's ridiculous. What do you mean? I mean, I got problems, How does trust do it? Well, you're trusting that everything is happening perfectly. That's one of the premises of the course, that all is given to you. The ego has all kinds of ways of seeing differences, and therefore makes up grievances, and the grievances are blocking the light that I am, of course. The word acceptance to me has now become the same as trust, because when you are willing to accept, one of my favorite paragraphs in the course, lesson 135, which is the longest lesson in the course, if I defend myself, I'm attacking myself. In paragraph 18, he actually says, what can you not accept if you but knew that everything that seems to happen, all events, past, present, and even to come, are gently planned for you by one whose only purpose is your good. So it's in that acceptance.
Yeah. And that's so incredible. Like when you start to feel the trust for the Holy Spirit and those words ring true for you, you recognize, how much you were trying to control your past, but how now you can really just start to let go and, kind of follow that course teaching of I need do nothing. It doesn't mean you don't eat or don't work out or do your job or whatever. It just means that you don't worry about it. You don't fuss about it. You go with the flow, right? And how liberating.
There is nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. This is a fact. That's lesson 48. Notice it follows lesson 47. God is the strength in which I trust. He says, if you're trusting in your own little small puny strength, you have a lot to be anxious about. After all, he says, you know that you can't be trusted. He said, but if you're trusting in real strength, you can let go. I need do nothing, exactly as you say.
And it's so incredible. And, I think one of the things that has helped me as a course student is, how the course repurposes the world as a classroom for us. So, to know that there's purpose to our world as opposed to before where you thought, it was just so, haphazard and things would just come and go in and out of your life and you didn't understand them and you didn't know why they were happening. But I feel that that's just such a liberating thing to learn, that this is all for me and it's a classroom. And when I start to use it correctly, then I just don't feel like a victim anymore, right? And I feel like that I have some sort of purpose to everything, which is, of course, forgiveness and healing. But things lose, before they were so meaningless. But now things are given the greatest meaning, where I like to call lessons, that we approach in our life, I like to call them as stepping stones to God. Each one correctly used just brings you closer to God. How beautiful, right? Whereas before, it was all seemed so meaningless.
Yes. That's so perfect, actually. It's my willingness to step back and allow one who really knows the way to lead me. That's pretty much what it says in lesson 155. Let me step back and let him lead the way. Because I don't really know the way. In fact, my mantra lesson right now is lesson 25. It's been my mantra lesson for the last 16 years. It's I do not know what anything is for. Only the ego thinks it knows what everything is for, and that definitely gets in the way. I think that's one of the things I wanted to share with your listeners, with the audience here, and that's the idea, as he says in chapter 22. Either this course is to be accepted totally, or not at all, to be believed totally, and not at all. Because if you're doing just parts of the course, like the parts you like, and then you say, well, I don't know about this because I don't know if I accept it. It's not my experience yet. What you're doing is you're denying what Jesus is giving to us as a curriculum. So he says either accept the entire curriculum or not at all.
Totally. And that development of trust will help you get there, to just go like, look, I'm going all in. I'm starting to let go. And also like just reflecting on how much we have controlled, and how control is an ego attribute. It's what it does to try and make sure everyone stays within its thought system. And from our perspective, it just seems like, well, I have to control my environment, right? And that's defensiveness in a sense, right? And it comes from a feeling of weakness, where like I don't trust, I don't have any faith, and I just feel like I have to control everything everything in order to feel good, right? So like kind of this is something, you know, I've experienced anxiety in my past. Totally. When I was experiencing anxiety at an acute level, the attempts to control my environment, you know, which ultimately would lead to obsessive compulsive disorder because everything had to just be so, right? So, you know, control can really get out of hand. And also what I share with my subscribers is, you know, miracles are natural. When they do not occur, something has gone wrong. And that something that has gone wrong is us getting in the way. Again, that attempt to control because I don't accept, I don't trust. And so then the miracle can't happen.
That's right.
Yeah.
That word control also is what divides us, because control is, do you think like I think? Because if you don't think like I think, then you're over there. And one of the premises of this course, which I think is one of the things to really learn very early, it's at the very first sentence of chapter 18, section 6, called Beyond the Body.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, there is nothing outside of you. This is what you must ultimately understand.
Yeah.
This is what you must ultimately learn.
Yeah.
Now, I remember when I first read it some 40 years ago, I said, there's nothing outside of me. That's what I must ultimately learn. I guess one day I'm going to ultimately learn that, but not now.
Yeah.
It was a couple of years ago, I was with John Monday, who was like my partner at One Mind.
Yep.
And he says, do you know what the word ultimately means? I said, what? He said, it means now.
Ooh.
Ultimately means now. When am I going to learn that there's nothing outside of me?
Yeah.
You can only learn it right now, because if you put it off for the future, there's always something outside of you that you're trying to control. You're trying to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic so that things go your way. Yeah. So my willingness to see that I'm really always speaking to myself. No matter who I'm speaking about, I'm always speaking to myself about myself. There's nothing outside of me.
Yeah.
I always say you can write that on my tombstone.
Yeah.
Dove says he's always speaking about himself.
Yeah.
So what am I going to say about myself? That I don't like you, you don't agree with me, you're different than me, you're less special than me, I don't like the way you comb your hair. I'm always speaking about myself.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful thing to learn, like how much, you know, within the ego's thought system, we're always kicking ourselves in the teeth. We so much think that we're putting it out there, but as we learn in the course, ideas leave not their source, right? And how could it, if I make a judgment on someone, how could it have left me, right? It came from my mind, I said it. To me, that just means it got stronger within me, right? Yes. And because there's no one else out there, that was just a message to Fiona.
Very good, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's my willingness to say I do not know that actually opens my mind, because if you think you know anything, the mind is closed. And in a closed mind, the ego is controlling you. I mean, the only one that's being controlled when you're trying to control is the ego controlling your mind.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you take anything here seriously, this is a line from Ken Wapnick, who was like my teacher, going for many years.
Yeah.
So Ken says, if you take anything in this world seriously, that's the ego doing magic on your mind.
Yeah.
And I like to say that's the ego messing with your mind. I mean, if you think it has to be a certain way in this world, it really doesn't mean anything. I've come to recognize that lesson one, for me, it doesn't have to be for others. Lesson one is the whole course. He's telling you right in lesson one, nothing I see here means anything.
Yeah.
Now, if you can laugh at this point, you're not listening to the ego. Because the ego said, well, what do you mean doesn't my dog happy means something.
Yeah.
My view out my window means something. What do you mean nothing means anything?
Yeah.
And if you take it seriously, that's the ego messing with your mind, literally. So as you begin to gently laugh at the same things that you used to take seriously, you know that you're waking up. You are basically resurrecting, you're rising above the battleground, because the war is not going on out there, the war is going on in my mind. If the war is going on in my mind, I got to take it seriously, you know. I have somebody out there who doesn't like me, who I don't want them to win, I want to win. That's known as survival of the fittest. That's the ego's purpose, survival.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a survival. Yeah. Always in your mind. It needs your loyalty, right? It's always distracting you and trying to keep your attention from the truth. Yeah. And it's also when, we talk about control and lack of trust, what also stands out for me is that, other people's opinions of you or their judgments of you, and how much that we sometimes try to hop inside someone else's mind and kind of like change and manipulate how they think about us, and the ego's first law of chaos is the truth is different for everyone. So when we play from our own ego with the other ego, you're just on that, again, that battleground, right, of just, again, trying to control. And it's just, in life coaching, I've taken life coaching, and one of the rules of life coaching is that I can't give advice. I can't hop in someone's mind and, tell them what to do. It's up to them within their own mind. And I just have to respect that and trust that they're on their own path. They're doing their own thing. And from A Course in Miracles perspective, that kind of relieves me of trying to step inside their ego world and try and fix things and try and control things, like especially in relationships. It's so nice to just take a big step back and go, this is not for me to, control and manipulate. This is something for me to just trust that this person is on their path. I'm on my path. And all I can do is see with the Holy Spirit and love them truly, as opposed to getting in all to the minutia of the ego. Yeah.
As you're speaking, it reminds me of a line in the Course. It says, let him be who he is. Let her be who she is. Seek not to make of love an enemy. Because love doesn't change anyone. Love sees you exactly the way you are as perfect. But in my ego's judgment, I say, well, if they could only do this and they could be more, they could be better. That's the ego looking to change things around. I want things to be my way. Right. And God says, no, all things are perfect exactly the way they are. Yeah. And that's what God's will is. God's will for me is perfect happiness. Yeah. And I share God's will for my perfect happiness. That's lesson 101 and 102. Yeah. I don't need to make anyone happy. Yeah. I am as God created me, and so is all else. That's one of my main thoughts that I bring to students, basically, is the idea of the goal of this course is peace. It's not knowledge, or understanding, or fixing things. The goal is peace, the peace of mind, the peace of God that passes all understanding. But peace has one condition. He tells you that. The goal of the course is peace, and peace is the key to the kingdom, and then which is your home. God created the kingdom for his son. Yeah. But what's the one condition necessary for peace? Equality. Equality, seeing sameness, seeing oneness. And he tells you that's what heaven is. Heaven is an awareness of perfect oneness. That's why our ministry is called One Mind Foundation. Beautiful. And the name of my book is called Into Oneness. Yeah.
That's gorgeous. And it's true, this, beneath the ego facade where it seems to be about 8 billion people and the separateness, it's not your physical eyes that are going to tell you that you're connected with everyone. It's going to be your mind. It's going to be the love in your mind that's going to go, I'm connected to that person. We are one. And it's so beautiful. And when you have peace in your mind, you're going to be open to that idea and you're going to accept it, because you're not seeing the physicality and being, kind of manipulated by the ego, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's an awareness. Yeah. It's an openness where you're willing to see. You're not really seeing bodies. See, I am not a body. I'm free to see your brother as being free also. Yeah. I'm at that form I see out there with my body's eyes that can't see, eyes that are blind, ears that can't hear, ears that are deaf. I'm seeing the light. When all you want to see is love, love is all you'll see, as he says. And that's my way to freedom. If I want to see my brother as free, that he doesn't have to be fixed, he doesn't have to be changed in any way, that he's perfect exactly the way he is, then I'm free. I don't have to do anything. I need do nothing to be as God created me.
Exactly. Yeah. And isn't that so incredible? Like, again, I need do nothing to be, you know, as God would have me be, right? If anything, I just have to undo the ego and just let go and just let things go and just let my true self, you know, come to the forefront of my mind and just shine through. Like, it's actually really incredible how little we do need to do, you know, when you start to trust and accept the Holy Spirit in your life. Of course, you still do things, but they're done with such ease. And, you know, you just don't worry about things as much as you used to, you know? Yeah, it's such a fresh perspective.
That's what trust is. Worry, if I give you a very short story, worry, I listened to Norman Vincent Peale, who the author of The Power of Positive Thinking. He had a story that he says, do you know the word worry? It comes from the old English word wrangle, which is to strangle, so worry strangles the life out of the Son of God. So it isn't that you shouldn't worry. It's that you're killing yourself about something that doesn't really mean anything. He says, so if someone says, well, what happens when you have something that means something to you and it's a problem? He says, well, I have a thing called my Wednesday afternoon worry jar. If something happens, he says, I write it down on a little piece of paper, I roll it up and put it in my Wednesday afternoon worry jar. And every Wednesday afternoon around 4 o'clock, I take a cup of steaming hot tea, piping hot tea, I sit down, I open up the jar and I start looking at it. He said, would you believe that 95% of the things that I thought I had to worry about, don't have to worry about, they just took care of themselves.
Isn't that incredible?
So someone says, well, what do you do about the other 5%? He said, I put them back in the worry jar for next week.
That's truly wise, isn't it? I love it. Well, and you know, I've also recently experienced that. My subscribers know that I'm recovering from caregivers PTSD from having taken care of my dog while he was passing away from cancer. So my nervous system got a bit shot. And after that, you know, I was just a bit sensitive, to be kind, sensitive to opinions and judgments, particularly from my family. And I have a big family. And, you know, whenever someone would say something that was kind of averse to what I was feeling, and of course, ego Fiona would kind of get in a state about it and just be like, oh, I wish they didn't say that. They're misunderstanding me. I wish they were more sensitive to what I'm going through, things like that. I would ultimately just give it over to the Holy Spirit and just go, Holy Spirit, can you please help me with this? I don't want to hold on to it anymore. I don't want to feel this way. And of course, I want a good relationship with my sister, whatever it might be. So totally, completely, Holy Spirit, it's yours. And actually, this happened a few times over the summer, that whatever I was in a state about, when I gave it over to the Holy Spirit, my sisters would actually clear up what I was in a state about. I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to go, hey, can we talk about this? Because I feel like you misunderstood me. You know, I was floored. Every single time they would come to me and be like, oh, by the way, that thing you were saying, I read an article and la, 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 I totally agree with you. And, you know, it just really sorted itself out. So it was really amazing what happened when I took my ego out of the way, right? And, you know, I didn't need those things to be happy, but I did appreciate that they got cleared up in their own right, you know, without me having to do anything.
Well, that's beautiful. Things just normally sort themselves out, but you have to be willing to step back and trust. You know, I'm going to speak a little about trust. It was given to me. I think it was like, you know, like everyone has something that they bring to the party. Yeah. And I have been working on developing trust for a very long time. It came to me when my very first group, when you asked me when I started teaching, and it was in 1980 when that person asked me to lead a group. and it was in Greenwich Village, New York. And after a couple of years, we had 20 or 25 people coming every Monday night to hear about A Course in Miracles.
Nice.
And a lot of people thought a miracle was finding a parking spot or getting a better job or having a better spouse, a better relationship, a better this. And you know, and a lot of people used to ask me, well, what does the Course say about this? And what does the Course say about that?
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, and I don't know how it came to me, but it came to me, why don't I said to the people, why don't each of you take a week and become a moderator and you be responsible and lead the group?
Yeah.
The same people that used to ask all the questions like, what does he say about this and what does he say about that, became teachers of other teachers. One guy, he was a rear admiral in the U.S. Navy. He invited me to the United Nations, which was just not too far. He invited me to the United Nations, and he was leading a group of about 50 countries. They all had a copy of the Course in Miracles, and he was leading the group. This is the same guy that used to ask all the questions. So I realized that when you give people an opportunity to take their place among the teachers, that's how they begin to hear the voice for Spirit speaking to them and through them. That everything is given to you. You don't have to learn anything. In fact, on page 28 of the text, it's one of the most, you know, a lot of people say, well, suppose I come to the microphone and I have nothing to say. We say, well, look at the italics on page 28 of the text. It says, I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to, I don't have to know what to say or what to do. He who sent me will give me what to say and what to do. I'm here. He will go with me wherever I go, and he will teach me how to heal as he teaches me to heal.
Right.
So, and I will be healed as he teaches me to heal. So those are the italics. So you don't really need to say or do anything to actually develop trust, but you have to be willing to step back and let him lead the way. And over the many years, I started a thing called ACIM Gather on Palo Talk about 16 years ago. And people do come there as a way of developing trust. And many of the people that started with me early are now leading huge groups of other teachers. You know, I'm speaking of like Lisa Natoli and Bill Free from Teachers of God, Regina Dornakis from Awakening Together, Lynn Johnson, who now runs ACIM Gather. They all started teaching some 15 years ago, and now they're teachers of many other teachers. But they all started, I remember Lisa would say, you know, until you told me to pick up the microphone and teach, I didn't want to teach. But she started with one session a week, and by the end of the first year, she was doing 4 sessions a week, because that's how you learn that Spirit is always speaking to you and through you. But you have to be willing to not listen to the ego that says you're not there yet. You have to be willing to say, okay, let me step back and let him lead the way.
Exactly. And it's so incredible. And, you know, that's actually a similar story to how I got started teaching the course as well. I had probably been doing the course for about 2 years, and a woman who was teaching it here in Calgary, she started using my home to gather people, and which was great. And just one day she was like, well, she's like, I need some help. And she just said, Fiona, will you teach with me? And I was like, absolutely, like, hands down, I'll help. And I wouldn't claim to have known all, you know, about like all the answers of the course and things like that at that time. And I definitely recognized within myself when I began teaching it and sharing it, of course, the message got reinforced. But when I didn't know something or I didn't understand it, I would just ask the Holy Spirit and just go, Holy Spirit, can you please guide me on what this means? And sure enough, I would get the answer. It would come in my mind. It would just make sense. It was just like a few puzzle pieces that just came in perfectly together. So yeah, like when you step into the role, you don't have to worry about it. It just all falls into place. It really, really does. Yeah.
In fact, there's a line in chapter 4, section 5, paragraph 6, sentence number 7. I always say it's easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It says, ask of all things of this world, what is it for? Because you don't know. This is not your home. The laws of this world are not your laws. I live under the laws of God, lesson 76. The laws of this world, which are the laws of chaos, are not your laws. So ask, of all things of this world, what is it, of course, you don't know?
Yeah.
Your willingness to ask is your willingness to develop trust in one who does know.
Yeah. So would that be then one of the first steps you would say to developing trust is to ask and be willing and be open? Is there anything else that you could give them, my subscribers, to help them develop trust as well in the Holy Spirit?
Well, if you're now a member of a group and there's only one person who's the moderator, who's always telling you what the Course is saying, you might suggest having rotating moderators, and if the person is unwilling, you might start your own group, basically, where everybody gets an equal opportunity to take their place among the teachers.
Beautiful.
Because that is what teaching is for. Remember, there is a manual for teachers. Many people do not look at the manual for teachers because they think it's for teachers. It's not for them. Actually, I can suggest to a lot of people, even though I started, and I always say start with lesson number one and go as far as you can, same as was told to me. But if you want to take a lot of the mystique out of the Course that you find in the textbook, which is not an easy read, start with the manual for teachers. I call it the Cliff Notes of the Course. It gives you an overview of many of the words which sometimes are very difficult, like what is forgiveness, what is salvation, what is resurrection, what is the second coming. It literally takes the mystique out, and he does it in question and answer format in very simple language. But I would say anybody who really wants to develop trust, do take a look at how you can either start your own group or suggest to a group that you're already in that people take turns, because it's your willingness to take responsibility, which is being cause. This is a Course in cause and not effect. If you sit there and let somebody outside of you tell you what everything is for, you're still at effect. You're still giving the power away to somebody else out there. That's where all power comes from. Responsibility for sight, chapter 21, section 2. I say I have a thing called the 12 core themes of A Course in Miracles. After doing the Course for some 27 years, I was listening to Ken Wapnick speaking about the introduction to the clarification of terms, which you find on page 77 of the Manual for Teachers. And when I was listening to him, I actually heard Jesus say to me, it could have been Jesus, it could have been Spirit, I don't know. It said, "Hey, Dove, close the book already. You can't find yourself in a book. God doesn't publish books. He doesn't know about words, symbols, concepts. Close the book." And it was then that actually I took on lesson 25 as my mantra lesson. I don't know what anything is for, but it's out of your willingness to actually not look for answers in the book, but your willingness to share from your inner self. That is what powers you. It's you're taking your power back. Responsibility for sight, chapter 21, section 2. I can tell the other part of the story, but after doing 27 years of doing the Course and knowing the book pretty well, I realized he says the same thing over and over again. So I was able to take a look and say that he really says the same thing over and over again, and you can break it down to 12 core themes of A Course in Miracles. I make that available to anyone who sends me an email. My email address is acimgather, the number 7 @gmail.com. Just put in the heading 12 core themes. I'll send you the 12 core themes. So it's what I say is 1,300 pages. It prints out to about 6 pages, and I have another one called the simple core themes. It prints out only 2 pages, but it's really what he says over and over again. As Ken Wapnick points out, the form is different, but the content is always the same. And number 2 of the 12 is responsibility for sight. And I feel that responsibility for sight, where he basically says, everything that seems to happen, you have asked for and you have received exactly as you have asked.
Yeah.
Deceive yourself no longer. These are things that are happening to you.
Yeah.
Acknowledge that you have been mistaken.
Yeah.
And all effects of your mistakes will disappear.
Yeah.
So I think it's so powerful to become responsible, to become cause in your own healing.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you can be healed, is to recognize that you're the dreamer of the dream.
Yeah.
You're not the person, the figure in the victim figure in the dream.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I am doing this unto myself, right? The key to salvation. I am doing this unto myself. And it's such a, as you're saying, a powerful, like it's a very strong lesson to learn, you know, because everything in the world would speak to something else, that the world seems to be coming, you know, at me, but it's coming from you and your powerful mind. And, you know, it's a message that I reinforce all the time with my subscribers, is that Jesus is always trying to ensure that the power of our minds remains intact and that we start to acknowledge it. And instead of being effect and cause, we go to cause and effect. And yeah, so A Course in Cause. And yeah, we absolutely have to take that responsibility of, look, if anything is going to change, it is up to me, in my mind, to choose to no longer do it by myself, which has always been the problem, that I'm trying to do it with just Fiona alone or the ego alone. And now I have to unify. I have to hold the hand of the Holy Spirit, which is natural, right? As Jesus says in the Course, the Holy Spirit is your higher self, is in you in a very literal way. So when we're unifying, which is our natural state, oneness, when I do it with the Holy Spirit, that's more natural. And then things start to really flow. Personally, I've found that teaching to help me with my trust, to go, I have a choice here. I can do it by myself, which I've always buggered it up, or I can do it with the Holy Spirit, which has, you know, you start to see the benefits and the effects of doing things with Spirit. Yeah. And that's the evidence that you need to continue to develop that trust. Yeah.
So restoring the power back to cause, to the dreamer of the dream, allows me for the very first time not to be a victim or feeling powerless or helpless in a world that seems to be against me. Yeah. That brings up something else in chapter 21, chapter 21, section 7. And by the way, I say that for me, the Course starts in chapter 21. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the first time it says in the introduction, projection makes perception. The world you see is an outside picture of an inner condition. Yeah. Until you recognize this, a lot of the Course does not make sense. Yeah. When you look out at the world, you think that you seeing out there is real. No, it's an outside picture of what's going on in my own mind. Right. If I don't like what's going on out there, you can't go out there and fix things, protest things. You have to go within and ask for the healing within you. Yeah. Now, chapter 21, section 2 is responsibility for sight. A few more pages up, chapter 21, section 7 is one of my favorite sections, called the last unanswered question. And whenever Jesus uses the word the last or the only, he wants you to listen, you know? Yeah. This is the last question you ever got to ask. Yeah. And he starts off in the first line. It answers everything that you just said. It says, can you not see that all of your misery, he says all your pain, all your hurts, all your suffering, all your depression, all your anxiety, all your stress comes from the strange belief. It's a belief. Yeah. I like to say every belief has a lie right in the center. Notice how you spell belief? There's a lie right in the center of belief. Yeah. It comes from your strange belief that you are powerless. Yeah. And he's laughing when he says that, because he says, you're the Son of God, you're powerful beyond measure. Yeah. Now, basically, Marianne Williamson picks up on that. She uses her own words. She says, your fear is not that you're inadequate. Right. Your greatest fear is that you're powerful beyond measure, and you're not living up to it. Yeah. I mean, she takes it right out of that first line. Yeah. Now, that same last unanswered question, as you come down, he says, you know, what do you think the last unanswered question is? Do you think it's, can I have the peace of God? He says, no, that's not it. Because the truth is, we are the peace of God. So the idea that you need the peace of God or you want the peace of God is not the last unanswered question. the last unanswered question is, am I willing to see what I denied?
Right.
Because I denied the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we live in a place called hell, is that truth is that we are one, and I denied it. I wanted to be special.
Yeah.
As Ken Wapnick says, that's the glorification of specialness.
Yeah.
So being a body, being special, being more special than others, being less special than some, I live in a place where I'm serving a life sentence in solitary confinement on death row.
That's right.
I mean, we've imprisoned ourselves in this specialness,
Yeah.
in this control mechanism where the ego is controlling us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're trying to punch our way out of a brown paper bag.
Yeah.
And I say, you can't punch your way out of a brown paper. You just can't.
Yeah.
Then brings up another metaphor from Ken Wapnick. He says, you think that your problem is that you're sitting in a sandbox and people are kicking sand in your face, and you're wondering, should I kick sand back at them, or should I run the other way, which is fight or flight?
Yeah.
As Freud says,
Yeah.
He says, that's not your problem. Your problem is you think you're sitting in a sandbox, and there isn't any sandbox. The world that you think is real is not real. It's an outside projection of your inner thoughts.
Yeah. 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 It's such an incredible place to come from, to start to realize that the world is a projection, and you actually can start to have experiences going, whoa, like this really is outside of me. Maybe this is not really who I am. Have you had any personal experiences that have kind of showed you that it's the world's a projection of your mind or anything like that?
Oh yeah, well, basically when you can smile and laugh at things that you used to take seriously, that is my experience. I mean, the things that I used to take seriously and worry about, he says in lesson 187, in your gentle laughter, it is healed. Yeah. So as you start to smile and laugh more, and he tells you the same thing in lesson 155, let me step back and let him lead the way. He says you start to smile more, there's no more frown on your forehead, your forehead is smooth. You don't worry about the things you used to worry about. I mean, that's my experience.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. And I remember that I interviewed Cindy Renard, and I had asked her a similar question. And she said she recognized her mind was healing, or the power of her mind, when she was leaving her apartment one day and she tripped and fell. And it was actually quite hard. She said she landed so hard, but she popped back up and realized she had no pain. And it actually didn't really faze her at all. It was just like boom, boom. So, it's these subtle things within our life experience that you go, wow, that would have really bothered me before. And I just feel so dissociated. Or someone might be making a big thing of something, and you just can't participate if you wanted to, because you're just like, it means nothing.
Yeah, as you are training your mind to see things differently, the things that used to disturb and annoy you, trigger you, they aren't there anymore. In fact, that's what I do on a Tuesday night. I have a free Tuesday night conference call where people call in, and I say, bring your cares, your worries, your problems, and if you're willing to look at it, to share it, we look at what's underneath the problem, and it's always a judgment that I made a long time ago, either about myself or about another. It keeps me triggered, and I actually say in that same card that I just showed you, it says, be grateful for your triggers, for they reveal our mistaken beliefs. Remember, a belief is a lie. So we have made a judgment either about ourselves, maybe not good enough. So maybe someone said that you're unworthy, or whatever it is that I listened to, that I kept there. And whenever somebody says something that reminds me of that, I get triggered. As Byron Katie says, your job is to love, and everyone else's job in your dream is to trigger you, so that finally all the things that used to trigger you aren't there anymore. You can smile and laugh at them because those judgments have been released. And what is it that releases judgment? Forgiveness. That's what it says in lesson 198. Only my own judgment, my own condemnation can injure me or hurt me.
Yeah.
Only my own forgiveness can set me free.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a judgment I made upon myself or upon another that stays there almost like a cement coffin,
Yeah.
keeping me down.
Yeah.
And you can free yourself very easily by just letting it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
The judgment was never real.
Yeah.
God's Son was never given the ability to judge.
Yeah.
Oneness cannot judge itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in this world of two-ness, in this world of duality, in this world of many different people in our dream, and I also like to refer to Dream Roles, chapter 29, section 4. He says, nobody can really betray you except the role that you have assigned to them. That's the same thing as Byron Katie is saying.
Mm-hmm.
The people in your life that are triggering you,
mm-hmm.
you assign that role to them so you can learn the lesson that you came here for.
Exactly. Yeah.
As Choose once again says, listen, you only review those lessons that you reviewed once before and you failed to learn the lesson. You just came back to review it, and maybe this time it won't stump you. You'll actually learn the lesson and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, for anyone who's listening, who's looking to, let a grievance go or to stop being triggered by something, one of the course teachings that's really helped me is to remember that in order to have right-mindedness, in order to access my right mind, I must first acknowledge that anything not of God can affect me. Only God can affect me. So if anything in the world that is seeming to affect me, that's me. That's me believing the lie that things in this world can affect me without my say-so. That is the ego's deception. It is coming from you. If you are reacting, that is showing you what's real in your mind. So when you are feeling yourself reacting, it doesn't mean you have to continue on with that reaction. That doesn't mean that you won't cry or feel your anger, like you will, and that's fine, but you don't need to act from it. You don't need to perpetuate the idea. You just need to go, whoa, this is coming up and I'm feeling it. But I don't need to stay there. When I'm ready, I can let it go. And I definitely don't need to act from it. And I definitely don't need to continue to analyze it or think about it in an ego sense. That is my opportunity. When I'm reacting and I'm feeling triggered, I got to let it go, right? This world can't affect me without my say-so. And it's an excellent thing to practice. And why not practice it every day with every little thing that seems to bother you? Because you're really developing that strength that when things really happen, like a bigger thing that seems to challenge you, you are prepared to go, this does not need to affect me as much as it would have in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because I see the world, like my birthday lesson. I one day I was listening to Ken Wapnick in New York City, and he's saying how perfect everything is.
Yeah.
And I said, if everything is so perfect, what's the possibility that we're all born on one of the 365 lesson days, and everyone has a birthday lesson which they were born to teach. Now, my lesson, which is on May 12th, literally says, I loosed the world from all that I thought it was, lesson 132. And that's the only one, I think it's in paragraph 6, it says, there is no world. This is the central theme this course teaches. It's the only place in the course that actually says there is no world. This is the central theme this course teaches. And I know when I first read it, I said, well, one day I guess I'll understand that. But my willingness to literally step back and say, I do not know what anything is for, allows me to recognize that the things are given to me and shown to me when I ask. You must be willing to ask of the teacher that God gave to you, not the teacher that it tells you what everything is for. The ego knows what everything is for. It's given meaning to everything, which is why I like lesson 1 and 2, which I say is the whole course. Nothing I see here means anything, but just in case anything means something to you, just remember, you're the one who's given all the meaning to it. Notice that the first 14 lessons are all about meaning. Like I'm never upset for the reason I think. A meaningless world is showing, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And then finally, way up at lesson 14, it says, but God doesn't create a meaningless world. Exactly as you just said. God doesn't create, God did not create this world. We made it as a as a deception, as an attack on the love of God. Said, look at this, God. You made a world full of death, full of people angry at each other, full of protests, full of division. God didn't create this. Now, lesson 14, which is on January 14th, says, God does not create a meaningless world. It also says in the same lesson, I think in paragraph 2 or 3, it says, God did not create cancer, so it's not real. And I remember 7 years ago, I did go through a bout of cancer. I was going through chemo and radiation. And I was going through my radiation, and it was January 14th, and someone at ACIM Gather was reading the lesson, and it said, God did not create cancer, so it's not real. I said, it says that in the Course in Miracles. I couldn't believe it. I went to look, and it said that. I called the guy the next day in radiation and said, no, I'm not doing any more radiation. And he says, you can't stop in the middle of the radiation. I said, yes, I can. He said, I'm going to call your wife and tell her. I said, go ahead. So basically, you begin to realize that you believe in things of this world that the world gives meaning to, that are meaningless.
So your mind felt strong enough in that fact that cancer wasn't real that you were able to give up the chemo.
Yes. Well, I didn't give up. I've already done the chemo. In fact, after a couple of bouts of chemo, which was about 2 weeks, the doctor actually said I was cured. I still did the radiation. I still did the radiation as insurance. That was my ego mind saying, "Oh, I better do this because if you only do one, it may come back, so I'll do two." Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I took insurance, but you don't take insurance. So and I also had one of my really great experiences during that time. I had an overdose of chemo. They gave me a heavy dosage, and my immune system really went down to zero. They had to build me back up again. So I was in the hospital for about 6 or 7 days, and about day 3 or 4, the doctor said, well, your readings are getting better, your vitals are getting better. You'll be out of here soon. So he left the room, and I said, well, Holy Spirit, I know I'm getting better, but why am I sitting in a hospital? I was fortunate. I spent most of my life never really being in a hospital. Yeah. And now, except for my tonsils, I'm saying, why am I sitting in a hospital now? Yeah. And I asked the question, I got the answer as clearly as I'm speaking to you right now. It says, you are perfectly cared for. I said, oh my God, that's true. I am perfect. I mean, the doctors are friendly, the nurses are friendly. I have Medicare, my bills are paid for. Why am I protesting? Why am I mean, I am perfectly cared for. And that's a message I give to everyone, that we're all perfectly cared for. Yes, we're in a dream and it seems, oh my God, I'm all alone. No, as Jesus says, I'm with you until the end of the world. You're not alone. No. Exactly. Our brother is always with us. We're never alone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're not in solitary confinement.
No. And sometimes when something, fearful comes up for me, I actually like to envision holding Jesus's hand, that he's standing right next to me and just close to me. Of course the Holy Spirit's in us, but I always just like to remind myself and putting myself in the vision of holding hands with him, of course, will distract you from the fear. But it's just such a powerful exercise, mental exercise to do, a visualization to just go, right, I'm not alone. I thought I was, but I'm not, right? And literally the power of God is within me, right? Mm-hmm.
He actually says that in the Course. He says, take my hand. And he says, I mean that literally. Yeah. You can take my hand. He said, I mean that literally.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that beautiful?
So it's not a figure of speech.
No, it's not. It's not. And it is, if I can share with everyone, it is, especially when you are going through something, it is about the types of messages that you give yourself. Like this is if you're going through something, that is the time to use the Course. Why not, right? Because I always say you're using your mind anyway. You may as well use it correctly. You're going to develop your trust in the Holy Spirit by seeing the benefits of doing so. So when you start to apply the course principles, if you can even just take a few minutes out of your day and just start to use it, you're going to get the effects of it. Cause and effect are actually one. You can't have one without the other. And in order to get the spiritual effects and the corrections and the healing and all of that stuff, you have to apply the course. So I just invite anyone who is going through something, to just go, okay, how about I spend a few minutes today and just start to think differently? Because the messages that you're sending yourself, throughout the day about what you're going through can either work for you or really hinder you. And when I was recovering from the PTSD, my TV is just behind me, and there's a piece of paper just above the TV, and it's still there. I've kept it. And on it, I've taken my favorite teachings from the course on there. So the strength of God is in me. Why would I use the wings of a sparrow when the wings of an eagle have been given me? I am one in God. And those ideas that I fed myself while I was going through the PTSD, especially the mornings were the worst because of the panic that was associated with it. And I really just needed to calm down. They really helped, to the point that now I've just left that piece of paper up because it's awesome. Those messages that I gave myself, I know helped me through the PTSD and get through it quicker, because I was doing it with the Holy Spirit and not by myself. And I was giving myself those right-minded ideas to help support myself through them. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What the course is, it's a mind training course. It's to train your mind to see things differently.
Yeah.
The ego always sees things as going against it. It's not good enough. I'm not there yet. And that only comes because we're valuing things that have no value, which is the next lesson, 133, which is my birthday lesson on leap years. It happens to be a leap year. So leap year, it's 133. I will not value what's valueless. What's valuable belongs to me. Yeah. So when you're valuing the things of this world, you will make a lot of mistakes because you're valuing things that have no value to the eternal. Yeah. So you have to be willing to say, can I see this differently? And start to recognize that what God has given you is eternal value. Right. The peace of mind, the peace of God, the love of God, your kindness, the light. I am the way, the truth, and the light. You are the truth. Yeah. And we think that there's a truth in a book. No, there's no truth in a book. A book is concepts. Exactly.
Yeah, it's your application, right? As Jesus teaches us in the introduction to the lessons, it's your application that will show their efficacy. So that's right. Give them a go.
Yeah. And as he said, your only function is to remove the barriers, the blockages to your awareness of love's presence. The love is always here.
Exactly.
And what is love? Jesus is love. The awareness is love. To love the presence. Lesson 157, into his presence would I enter now.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And I feel like, a lot of people maybe worry about, if they do things with the course, things will lose the meaning that you've presently given them. So, I know I hear some people go, well, my daughter, I don't want to think of her as just a projection of my mind and, or your dog Happy or my old dog Guinness, but when you start to see things with the Holy Spirit, those beautiful things in your life, they lose the ego meaning, they lose the specialness, but then their true loving selves come through. They take more meaning in your life when the ego is removed from them. So if you have children or a pet or your home or your view, those things are given the meaning, the love of God, in a sense, right? To just go, wow, I can see this through the Holy Spirit's eyes with true, right? The true perception. And it doesn't make it real, but you sense the love beneath everything.
Your daughter or your son is the perfect teacher for the lesson that you came here to learn. So I don't see the world as a world. I see the world as a classroom. Yeah. And we come here to learn lessons. Yeah. And the people in our dream, the people in our immediate family, or even at work, or the people I meet at a workshop, are the perfect people. It's always you're meeting the perfect person. I like to say we live in a sea of synchronicity within an ocean of love. But they are the perfect people for the lessons that we came here to learn.
Exactly.
And that's
pretty much how I see the world, that everyone is perfect in our life,
Mhm.
especially the people that you don't understand why they're in your life, especially them.
Yeah.
As Ken Wapnick would actually say, if you really want to do this course on the fast track instead of at a snail's pace, don't hang out with the people who make you feel wonderful.
Yeah.
Hang out with people where you're feeling a little uncomfortable, because that's where your lessons are.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
True.
where your lessons are.
Yeah.
Your lessons aren't with the people that call you up and tell you how wonderful you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the ego loves to have a few of those around for sure. But the ego hates to have the others around. Why?
Yeah.
Because they are your lessons. They are your real lessons.
Yeah.
I like to say that is what I teach. I do personal counseling. I do
Yeah.
coaching.
Yeah.
And I always say, you know, wherever you are, you know, my first session is always a complimentary session, just to tell how we work together.
Yeah.
And if they want to go on, they can go on. They can reach me at that same address, ACIM gather, the number 7,
Yeah.
at gmail.com.
Yeah.
Or my phone number, you can call 914-282-4455, and let's talk. I usually do a session either on a video camera or Zoom or something like this, or just on the telephone. And again, I have a free conference call every Tuesday night at 7:30 Eastern time. I don't have the number. Actually, I do have the number. It would take me a second to kind of get it, but I don't want to be. I think I can get it. It's the number is, if you want to, if you're still there. Okay, the number is area code 605 472 5694. And if they prompt you, they will prompt you for an entry code. It's 158857 hashtag 158857 hashtag. Okay. You can find me at onemindfoundation.org. Yeah. One Mind Foundation. That's the ministry that I share with John Mundy. Nice. And I'd love to have anyone who would like to either maybe get a copy of those 12 core themes of A Course in Miracles, or just contact me. Please do. Love to hear from you and share with you.
Isn't that beautiful? Thank you, David. Like, it's just an excellent invitation. And I'll be sure to include all of the information in the email accompanying the video. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, a fabulous invitation.
Yeah, I also have a number of people can call from Canada. Okay. It's a toll-free number. I will get you that number and get it to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Truly.
My pleasure. Thank you so much and I know we can do this again and again and again and have wonderful conversations to help everyone. Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you.
Thank you.